order. I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. I believe I have 3. The first one is from Councillor Belanger related to Wasaga Beach Ministerial Food Bank, as he is actively involved in a third-party fundraising for the food bank. Councillor Watson, under new business, 4.2, grants to Royal Canadian Legion and Rotary Club for 75th D-Day anniversary dinners, as he's a member of both organizations. And Deputy Mayor Bray, item 4.2B, grant for Veterans Lunch, conflict due to her relationship with the Rotary Club. If at some point throughout the meeting you find that you have a conflict, please declare it at that time. Deputations, presentations, petitions, and public meetings. We have with us today Mr. Rob Slope and Wendy Moore, if you wanted to join us, from the Ministerial Association. Just as a little background, I meet with the ministerial group every 6 or 7 weeks, and I thought it was a good idea if they could just come and tell a little bit about what the churches in our community do, because I didn't know a lot of the services that you were providing, and I think it's important that council knows, but also the public who may be watching the live stream today. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I start. Okay, thanks, Rob. We're delighted to be here, and thank you for having us. Thank you very much. And we'd like to be able to, we thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to council a few of the many programs that we actually are going on in our churches, participating also and alongside with what we usually do, which is of course worship and connecting with each other, God and community. We're probably best known by all of you for the work that we do with the food bank, because it is organized, operated by the Wasaga Beach Ministerial Association. And we would like to thank all of you for your continued support of the food bank. You might not know this, but we have 1,400 clients at the food bank, and there are 400 children being supported by the food bank. Each month we give out between 250 and 300 boxes of food, and we anticipate to hand out over 300 food hampers this Christmas.
We have a sample of food that we brought with you today. Just to give you an example, this is what a family of 4 would receive for an entire month. And there's a couple things like potatoes, carrots, onions, apples when available. There would be some meats that we didn't bring along, of course, because we couldn't keep them refrigerated, some ground beef, chicken parts or whole chicken, and there'd be a few dairy products. But this is what a family of 4 would receive for an entire month. So you can see that it is visibly apparent that we're not feeding the family for a month, but we're coming alongside each family to help them with the burden. Our staff of volunteers deal individually with the clients to give them as much personal service as possible, and we're just serving some of the best people who just need a hand up and not a handout. I personally have interacted with clients who return to us as donators. They say that they'll never forget the help that they received when things were pretty tough. And we do want to say thank you to Councillor Belanger for his vigorous support and encouraging so many groups to contribute to the food bank and helping us to meet needs.
Thank you as well to the mayors of Wasaga Beach, whom over the years have continued to be supporters of the food bank. We are currently having a financial audit being done. We will forward this information shortly. We would like to know if we will continue to be on your line budget for 2020. That has a question mark after. We sincerely appreciate your support. If you've not visited the food bank recently, we cordially invite you to stop in. We're open Tuesdays from 10 to 1 and Thursday from 10 to 1, as well as Thursday evening from 6:30 to 8:30. We will give you a tour, and perhaps you might take a moment and sit with some of our town voters. There's a lovely table that we set out with coffee and cookies, and it's become quite a social connection for a number of the visitors to the food bank, right? It's a great source of information, what's going on. A discussion 3 of our ministers had at separate times with food bank clients at the coffee and cookie table that Ms. Kay provides brought to the forefront the need for something more to be done through the winter months.
And so we're currently launching a pilot project at Lighthouse Community Church, one of our various churches, what we're calling In From the Cold. Based on information from Dwayne O'Connor at Home Horizon, we are estimating a possible 25 homeless people in Wasaga Beach. Our goal is to offer free emergency shelter, safe and respectable hospitality to those that are experiencing homelessness. When the temperature dips below minus 15 degrees or minus 20 wind chill, there are going to be 20 beds that are available on a first come, first served basis from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m. And that's going to happen November through April. And this statement will raise questions like 25 homeless here in Wasaga Beach. Where are they? Where have they been in previous years? Only 20 beds for 25 souls? What will happen on the nights when In From the Cold isn't open? And we have been asking these very same questions, and we believe we're coming up with answers. And anyone that would like to find out information about volunteering and the training that will be involved are invited to join us at Lighthouse Community Church, 800 Sunnydale Road, from 10 a.m. until noon next Thursday, October the 17th. On this day, volunteers that come in will be given a letter that will be taken to the police department for a vulnerable sector check, a background police check, and based on these results, it will be decided if the volunteer is suitable for the In From the Cold program. We will also review their past work and volunteer experience. Dwayne O'Connor, who is director at Home Horizon, is trained and experienced in dealing with homelessness and mental health. He's a part of our committee. He'll be providing training in mental health. Further, a number of our committee are being trained in nonviolent crisis intervention, and we are working on arranging this training for all volunteers. Andrea Renwick, another committee member, worked in the city of Toronto for 26 years as a social service worker and had a homeless caseload. We have ordered new sheltered beds, which are bed bug resistant. We have adequate washroom facilities, which have been inspected by the fire chief and building inspector in Wasaga Beach. The committee of In From the Cold would love to invite each of you to come and see what we are doing. We'd like you to be a part of our Volunteer Information Day. If you would check your schedules for Thursday, October the 17th from 10 a.m. until noon. We believe that we have an obligation and an opportunity to be difference makers, and that helping others is not work, but it is a privilege. Wendy?
Thanks, Rob. Local congregations and clergy are meeting as well the spiritual needs of those who desire our support. And you see a lot of it up the food bank, right? We sure do. We run many different programs, and most of our events are wide open and welcoming for whomsoever would like to join us. We have from nursery, children, youth, and adults, all ages, through to the most senior of seniors. And this is Rob saying we hatch them, match them, and dispatch them.
Yeah, it sounds like he, doesn't it?
That too, that too. Church buildings are actually used by community groups such as the Wasaga Beach Garden Club, AA, Al-Anon, CODA, Alzheimer's, and Vaughan. We host theater productions, concert bands, voting stations, and even basketball, other sports, and summer vacation Bible camps for our little guys. This past weekend, we hosted the annual clothing drive, where local residents came and gathered any clothes they needed. All clothing was donated by the Wasaga Beach residents to help each other. On top of that, we now have a clothes closet prepared to help families in emergency situations find clothes year-round. Outside our buildings, we work with the youth center in fundraising and offer a monthly dinner for the young people. The Lions Club helps us, offers us space for this pop-up shop that we do in the springtime. And the idea behind the pop-up shop is we collect formal dresses and suits so that young people can find it's just a free will offering, so they can pay whatever they want for a graduation dress and a suit for their graduation. So it's become quite popular. Can I tell you one little story that Rob didn't write?
Go ahead.
Okay. Last year we were there, and it was early in the morning. We'd really just opened our doors, and this young man came in with his mother. And it clearly was not his idea to go there. He did not. It was so obvious. This young lad didn't want to have anything to do with this. And his mother was practically dragging him by the earlobe. Anyway, he came in and we got them set up by the suits, and somebody picked out a couple of suits that would be perfect for this young man. And he very reluctantly went into the changing room. I can't tell you the look of disdain on his face. Anyway, he changed, he came out, and he looked like $1,000,000. And everybody in the room went, "Oh, wow, look at you." And his face lit up, and he was strutting around the room, and we said, you look gorgeous, that's perfect on you. The transformation in those few seconds was absolutely wonderful. And then somebody said, maybe we should be looking for a shirt and tie. Okay, let's look for a shirt and tie. So just to say that for some young people, it really is an opportunity, a tremendous opportunity for them. We have a lot of fun with it, and for this young lad, it made all the difference in the world, and he looked fabulous. So we also provide at the Recplex, we run what we call Mums and Tots program, which is for mums who would generally be kind of locked in and away and isolated, but they come to this program. It's absolutely free, and they bring their babes, and we kind of help look after the babes, and we serve coffee and amazing snacks. And the mums yak, 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 yak. It's wonderful. The noise level just keeps going up and up in the room, which is fabulous. We've started Super Wednesday at the Seniors Active Learning Center, and it's right now on the third Wednesday of the month. We are hoping to offer it very much more regularly. And again, the idea is to bring folks out and have a place where they can sit down at table and chat. And we also, all of us spend a day, at least one day a month at Waterside, the seniors' residence in town, and we offer a service to them as well. There's not a week that goes by that the ministers are not approached for help in some form in our community. What do we call our phone line?
I don't know, phone line.
No, the phone line.
We just keep each other accountable when somebody's calling and asking for a hand out.
Yeah, there's
so that one person doesn't go church to church to church. We just kind of deal with each other so that we're making sure that everybody's. We're not helping the same person 5 times, but we're sharing the wealth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
As benevolent request.
Okay.
That's what it's called. As funds permit, our congregations are helping people with gas, food, moving expenses. We will help with utility bills, rent, and too much month and not enough money for so many people.
Mayor, Council, as I was writing out this list of things, I got to tell you, I'm pretty pleased with the group of people that is a part of this community that come together for the good of Wasaga Beach. And we do want to say thank you for giving us a few minutes to share a few of the things that we do as a part of our community, and also to remind us of why we're doing it. And for us, it comes from the Bible. Jesus, the guy we say we follow, he said this. He said, "Come, you are blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me." We really do appreciate the time that you've given to us today, and we are available to answer any questions that you might have on behalf of the whole ministerial, all the churches that are facilitating all the great programs in this community. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for being here, but also thank you for all the work that you're doing in the community. I appreciate the fact that you brought an example of what a month's worth of food would be.
Yeah.
I think there is a misunderstanding in the community about what is handed out and the need that we have there. I'm looking to the CAO to confirm about the budget item.
Yes, Your Worship. So $24,000 has been allocated in the 2020 budget for the food bank.
You've just made a number of people very
Very
happy.
Thank
We
you.
recognize that we need to get some paperwork to you as soon as the audit is finished. It's with the, I forget the gentleman's name right now, Greenwood, I believe, and then it'll be forwarded to you immediately.
Okay, and I'll open it up for any questions or comments. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple things. In your comments, you said next Wednesday, October 17th. That's this Wednesday.
Yes.
October 17th. So I
Thank you.
want it clear. Unfortunately, I'll be unable to make it, but I think it's an
Thank you
amazing
for
program. Also, while we're talking about this week, tomorrow is Super Wednesday.
Is it Super Wednesday this week?
I believe so.
It's the third Thursday. This is a
Wednesday.
confusing month. Third Wednesday.
Yeah, they're making the soup at the Recplex right now.
Yeah.
Oh, are they? Okay, well, then you're
Yeah, and
absolutely
I have to
right.
go home and make my
Okay,
soup.
I can't go because I have to be in Creemore. It
Yeah.
was in Creemore, so I
And
said
then-
I can't go.
The other thing, years ago, Your Worship, there was a challenge put in, a food bank challenge years ago that a number of people around the community participated in, where we were given 1 month supply of food and invited to live on that. And I did that. And it's not enough. It's enough to supplement. It's enough to assist. But the work you do for the number of people you do, and we've all been in the food bank at different times. It's an amazing thing in our community. It's a shame we need it, but man, it's a great service to have. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a shock to me, the number of children, 400 children. That actually set me back a step.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, well, thank you very much for being here and again, everything that you're doing in the community. And I'll give you some time to pack
Time
your
to clean up
box
quietly.
there.
Okay.
Thank you for your support. Absolutely. Thank you.
So we do have a motion here moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Watson, that Committee of the Whole receive the presentation from the Wasaga Beach Ministerial Association for information. All those in favor? Opposed? And Councillor Boulanger is away from the table, so it is approved by a vote of 6-0. Yes, 6-0. Next on our agenda is a report from the Economic Development Officer with regard to the facade improvement program. Is Tyler, okay. I'm not sure if there'll be questions or not, but we do have a motion. It's moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Foster, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that it approves the facade improvement program grant application for a single facade grant, 50% of the eligible work up to $2,000, submitted by Todd Young, Beach Builder Supplies Limited, for work to be completed at 1955 Mosley Street. Is there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Bright?
Just a comment, I was happy to see something coming forward. I think the facade improvement grant is a great opportunity for local businesses, and it's nice to see somebody taking part. So, thank you.
Councillor Kinney?
On what our deputy mayor just said, maybe that'll just trigger the spark to get, as you say, more people involved.
Okay. If there's nothing else, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Doug. Didn't work you too hard there. Next is a motion moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Wells, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that it provide a grant of $1,500 to the Royal Canadian Legion Stainer Branch number 457 in support of their 75th D-Day anniversary dinner being held on November 11th, 2019. And B, provide a grant of $1,000 to the Rotary Club of Wasaga Beach and area in support of their 75th D-Day anniversary luncheon being held on November 18, 2019. And I will note that Deputy Mayor Bray and Councillor Watson have pulled away from the table. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Kinney?
Your Worship, when we were provided the presentation last week, the fine gentleman from the Legion advised that I believe the total expenses was just over $3,000, and that half was being provided through a place in Creemore. And so I posed to that individual, what would be your full cost for was $1,650. To that question, he said, well, I'll make it from petty cash. I'm suggesting that council consider moving that $1,500 up to $1,650 so we can cover their total expenses, or half of that, so they don't have any more out-of-pocket expenses.
Okay, the mover was Councillor Foster and second Councillor Wells. Is that
I'm okay with it.
do I have to do that as an amendment, or can I, because I've already read it?
read it. So we'll do an amendment.
So we'll vote on the amendment first? Okay, so if it's moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Wells, that there be an amendment to provide a grant of $1,650 to the Royal Canadian Legion, Standard Branch 457. All those in favor? Carried. And then we'll do this motion as amended. Okay. Do I need to read it again, or are we clear on what we're voting on? Okay, so the same motion for both the Rotary as well as the Legion as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have a motion with regard to a bookmobile. It is moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Foster. The Committee of the Whole received the proposed WBPL bookmobile report from the Director of Library Services for information, and further that committee approved the donation of Rescue Truck 5 to the library upon its decommissioning from the Wasaga Beach Fire Department fleet, and further that committee directs staff to re-examine draft 2 of the library's 2020 budget to reallocate funding to ensure that the bookmobile has minimal impact on 2020 taxation levels. Hello, Pam. Is there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Bray?
Two things. Comment, I think in the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. This is a great example of reuse. So thank you for Councillor Watson, I guess, for the idea, and for the library for jumping on it. My only comment would be, and it may or may not affect the budget, that we really should allow for new decals for vehicles when we repurpose them, because there is a bus down in Barrie that still carries our name, and I know we gave it with good intentions at this table, but whenever I drive by and I see it, I think it doesn't reflect, well back on the town. So I think it's really important, if we're going to donate things, that we just make that donation a little bit bigger and take off our marking, or put, donated by the town of Wasaga Beach, so that there's some recognition, but that it doesn't look like a bus that's missing a few stickers.
Okay. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, I echo the Deputy Mayor's comments. I think that retrofitting an existing asset, which the town already owns, is prudent, especially because it's got while it may not be suitable for emergency services, it may well be quite suitable for the library. I know some people feel that getting a book out is an emergency, but no one's life depends on it. And again, also I compliment staff by saying, to watch for to look at rejigging the budget if possible to have a minimal impact. And I mean, theoretically, should it need to sit for 6 months or something, it's just a piece of infrastructure that, and in the report it says some of these things are $750,000 for the full bus. So we have the potential to save a lot of money and put this into become part of our library infrastructure. So I'm strongly in favor of it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I've already read the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next is a motion moved by Councillor Belanger, seconded by Councillor Kinney, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council to approve the annual Snowman Mania event on February 14th through 17th, 2020 at various locations throughout Wasaga Beach, and further that net $44,000 is allocated for pre-budget approval for the event. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a quick question to Angela. I think it's a great event. It's local based and provides a number of different activities for families and people of all ages, and I applaud that. My question merely is year over year. I haven't seen the numbers in several years for this, but I'm curious as to see, is this something that we've had at the same price point, or is it increasing or decreasing?
So this is, for you, Madam Mayor, this event in particular, it's the same net cost as the last couple of years, but we did increase the budget and the revenue. So we're looking forward to getting more sponsorships. We're looking at increasing the button sales by a little bit more, but the net cost is the same as it has been for the last couple of years.
Go ahead.
Given that it's kind of net zero or net the same, I'm supportive of it. But I do want to make sure that we're really seeing what bang we get for a buck. And so on a report like this, I would like to see the year over years, just so we can see the final results on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I've already read the motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next, we have a staff report with regard to third-party management, RFP for special events entertainment. There's a number of options there, so Ange and Chris, if you wanted to maybe speak to this first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, about potentially having a third-party event management company come in and book just specifically the musical entertainment to add an event. So they might have the ability to book some larger scale artists for maybe a little bit less, but with a lot of those third-party management companies comes a cost. So usually there's a percentage of fee tacked on to, if we were to get an artist, like let's say it's $10,000 and they have a 10% fee, that would be on top of. So I've outlined in the report some options to look at if we wanted to undertake this, what type of areas we should go with if we were to go with it. So we could look at a third-party company coming in and booking those entertainers for town-run events that have a main stage, or we could look at putting them on either side of the event so that the days that we have our stage set up, it's not sitting there vacant for a day, because we typically set up the day before and take down the Monday after. So that would help, activate the space while the stuff is set up, or going with weekends where we don't have any other large-scale events happening, or to not proceed at this time.
Okay, and just for clarity, even if we go to an RFP to see kind of what's out there and what we would get back, we wouldn't be tied to anything. Is that correct? We would still have the option to move forward or not?
Exactly.
In that fashion? Okay. Deputy Mayor Bray?
That might make a difference. Initially, when I read it, I thought programming the musical, higher class entertainment might be a good idea. But then as I got to the bottom of the report, I'm just wondering if it isn't premature. We really don't have a concert venue yet. So I'm just wondering if we're maybe kind of a year or two ahead of ourselves in doing this.
Councillor Belanger?
Yes, thank you. Chair and Mayor, with the Blues Festival, which I've been involved with a long time, we've used local talent. We have quite a number of individuals that have been in the industry and semi-retired, and they want to keep a little bit involved. And often there's a connection both with production as well as the selection of entertainment. And there may be an opportunity to avoid some of the costs that would normally be attached with a third-party company that does that alone, by looking at the production as well as the artistic director, call it, or the selection of artists. So you just may consider how we word that expression of interest or RFP, because I think there is some huge opportunity there of people within our community that will step up and do something like that.
Okay, anyone else? Deputy Mayor Bray?
So I guess just further to my point, my fear of going to an RFP at this point is it's going to postpone our staff going out and booking the music for next year, because whether it delays it 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, it might have an impact on what we get next year. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job with what we've got. So for me, I'm not willing to support it at this time. I guess I'm voting for option 4.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Kinney?
Just really quickly, Your Worship. I'm falling towards option 4 with the overall thought that it's not that it's a bad idea, however, I think it's something that we could revisit in the future. So by saying no now doesn't mean it couldn't come back up next year or the year after when we've got that infrastructure.
So I'm looking for someone to put a motion forward for one of these options. Councillor Kinney?
I'll go for option 4.
And do you have a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Deputy Mayor Bray. I will, leave these two and then this. The Committee of the Whole consider a request for proposal process for a third-party management to book live music acts and entertainment for town special events, and further the committee recommend council to direct staff to undertake one of the following options. Option number 4, do not proceed with the request for proposal at this time. Is there discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? So it is carried 6-1 with Councillor Boulanger in opposition. Next, we have a report that again has options in it, so I will ask Ange if you can speak to it first. It's with regard to the air show 2020 opportunity.
Thank you, Your Worship. So once again, I've put together a variety of options for Council's consideration. We're at the stage now where if we were to proceed with an air show for 2020, we recommend that we attend a conference in December and we start planning the planning process and soliciting for sponsorships to try and offset those costs. So in the report, I've broken down 3 different options if we were to go forward with an air show. Option 2 is what I've put it as one of the recommendations, and that is a mid-tier show. It has a little bit of everything, but not over extensive. It's not just an air show, it's just a little bit more. And I've also included some marketing budgets and some other expenses that would be incurred, and then we have a very high-level sponsorship package that we would start soliciting for. So in addition to that part of the recommendation, that we would come back to council if we weren't, or come back to council with our projected sponsorships at the next available council meeting in November.
Okay, we'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Your Worship. And in reading this, I have a challenge between our wants and our needs. So the difference between a want and a need is a want is what you have until your neighbor buys it and it becomes a need. So I look at this and go, it would be lovely to have the air show. The one that was held in 2016, 17 was tremendous. The one that was here. And I go, I love the concept of it. I guess my question is there's a lot of other needs in this town that may take priority over watching an air show. Although I understand from the report and from being at the last one is that there's a bunch of potential business spin-off on this. So it's good for the overall economy of the town and may net well to zero. However, I guess my question to Ange and Angela, and I think it's in here, but I just want to make sure I'm clear, because there's a whole process to this. So we had to show we had some interest in that. We did a couple months ago, and we're moving ahead. Now they're sitting there going, the snowbirds, and it's now been pitched to the Royal Canadian Air Force, and we are now on a list of potential sites with all over North America, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. So if we were to go with your line 2, your suggestion of putting 80 grand just as a placeholder, if the RCAF then says, and we go, I forget where the conference is, I think in Vegas or something fun like that, but I go, if the RCAF then says, yeah, you're now on the short list, do we have the ability to back out, or are we committed at this very point? And the reason why is we're early in the budget process. So to put $80,000 in there is great. It represents probably a 0.5% tax increase for the, you know, a couple bucks, or maybe not that much, but I still want to sit there and say, there are other priorities in this town that may take it. So I don't want to commit us to something that we can't back out of until such time as we've done the full read of the full budget and know what the numbers will be. And at that point, we could sit there and say that 80,000 could be so much better allocated to Project X or what. So I don't know if Angela has an answer to that, or even if it was a question, but.
Ange, here you have Chair. So we could still back out if we were to be selected as a site. It wouldn't look overly good on us if we did that, but it's not. It has happened before, and I'm sure it'll happen again with people doing that. So it's ultimately up to council, like what your thoughts are on it. But we could pull out if need be.
Chris?
I think further to Angela's point, there's been a date identified for us that works with our schedule and the RCAF schedule at this point. And further to Councillor Foster's comment about the budget upcoming, we've offered a date of November 26th as our go, no-go. We'd like to try and understand more about the revenue and expenses with council's blessing, that we start to go out and publicize the fact that, would you like to partner with us on this event? Knowing that on November 26th, we will bring back what we've learned with a recommendation to say next week they want to make these announcements in the conference in early December, and we recommend that we go forward knowing it's 80,000, and maybe there'll be a little bit more information on the budget at that time, but we just don't want to really formalize some of those partnerships without council's understanding that the implication is soon upon us that we say yes or no to those partners and to the RCAF.
Okay, Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm also concerned about the amount of money. However, as Chris had mentioned, there is we go ahead and we don't go ahead date. And if we can stay fast to that, then that might help out alleviate some of the financial issues that could impact the budget.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Bray?
Thank you. I'm certainly interested in seeing it moving forward. There is a go or no-go day in November, as Chris pointed out, and I'm willing to see how far we can get before that date. I know service clubs have looked at bringing the snowbirds to town before, and it is, it's risky. There's a lot of money, and no small group can probably arrange it. I think it was fabulous that the Heroes Festival went off as well as it did, but I don't think it was as profitable as one person thought that it should have been. So if towns don't get involved and put a little bit in, I don't think we'll see shows of this size coming to small towns in the future. The other thing is that there is a surplus in the budget this year, so if we're rolling it over into next year, it's not like we're taking $80,000 of new tax dollars. These are dollars that are already sitting in the bank. We haven't spent them, so it might be a good investment to go big and have something that really will be of pride to our community next year. So I'm certainly supporting option 2 at this point.
Okay, any other comments? For myself then, I'll support it at this point because there is the no-go date in here. I have concern about spending this much money for a day or two. If you have bad weather, if you have clouds, the show will not be what people would want it to be. So I have concern putting all of that money into kind of one day, one event. But I would rather see it spread over 3 and maybe bring people to town more often. But at this point, if option 2 is put forward, I will support it just because of the no-go date, that we're not committed to anything, and we can see by then. So is your expectation that you would come back to council to say you have this pot of money from the community who's willing to step up and support it?
Yes, that's what I see as doing.
Okay. Anyone else? So I will need a motion from someone. Deputy Mayor Bray?
Yeah, I would make a motion for option 2.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Kinney. So the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Bray, seconded by Councillor Kinney, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that it receive the Airshow 2020 Opportunity Update Report and choose one of the following recommendations. which is option 2, that council provide direction to staff to proceed with option 2 should the town be successful with a bid to host a 2020 air show. Further, that staff be directed to report back on their progress securing sponsors and vendors at the November 26th council meeting to recommend a final go or no-go decision prior to the International Conference of Air Shows in early December. Further, that a net expense of $80,000 be included in the 2020 budget as a placeholder using available surpluses from 2019 special event accounts should the town host an air show in 2020 that includes a Snowbirds and CF-18. And further, the committee approved 2 staff registered to attend the annual International Council of Air Shows conference before the deadline on November 15th, with conference attendance fees allotted from the 2019 new event sponsorship budget, air show 2020 update final. So my question to you is, if you have to register for those, and we're not making a decision till the end of November, will we lose money on your registrations for the show and your accommodations and all of those things?
We would likely lose money on the registration for the conference. I think the hotel we'd be okay with, and if we had to book flights, then we would have to choose an option so that we can cancel that.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this item? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next is the proposed 2020 motorcycle event. Again, we have options, so I will ask Ange to speak to this first.
So you've all received the 2 presentations now from both of the groups that are proposing events, motorcycle events in 2020. So I thought it would be a good time to bring this forward to committee for consideration. Both organizers are requesting the events move forward rather quickly with their approval so that they can book things for like the International Motorcycle Show and start their marketing and planning for next year's events. So I've laid out 3 different options. Proceed with Bikers Battling Cancer. Option 2, proceed with Bike Fest. Or option 3, recommend that staff report both on separate event dates.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Bray?
Thank you. I would like to see going forward with both events. I think they're quite different. The first one was a smaller event anticipating 10,000 people. He says he's flexible with the dates, so there was a number of reasons why. He was the first one to come to town and present, and then lo and behold, somebody else suddenly popped in and said they wanted to do the largest bike rally in Ontario ever. So I think they're both probably a little risky because neither one is a proven venture, and I would like to give them both a chance if Special Events feels there's a way to host 2 events that at different times that activate our beach.
Anyone else? Councillor Boulanger?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. To Angela, like in the report, I'm assuming that both organizers expressed concern over the negative impact of 2 events.
They did. One was more willing than the other, but they both understand council's thoughts, and they both are eager to be the only. But I think if we were to move forward with 2, it could impact both events. But if they market them significantly, then they could both be very good, very well attended as well.
Okay, Councillor Foster?
Your Worship, I have a concern with having 2 events. Having been a motorcyclist for many years, there are events around the province pretty well every weekend you can go to. And so to have 2 in Wasaga Beach, I believe most bikers would pick one or the other, not both. I also have a concern with the and it was actually mentioned in the second deputation we had on this, was the bridge construction will create a challenge next summer. So to have 2 events that are based out of that are motorcycle based out of there are, to me, presents a possible challenge. I certainly have a sentimental value for the Bikers Battling Cancer. However, the second group have been involved with the Bike Fest previously, not as a support role, so to speak. and they're local. So I would be more of the option 2, believing that, and it's no disrespect to option 1, the person who is, it's not a reflection on that. It's just sitting there. I don't think this town is big enough for the 2 of them. I never thought I'd say that. But I do think that we have to.
You just did.
We have to put. Give the one of those 2 people the best chance for success in order to see the event go on. And if it's watered down, I believe neither of them will be successful, and it just won't bode well for the town. So I'm in favor of option 2, but I'll happy to listen.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Wells?
I'm certainly in favor of having the rally or rallies. I guess I too am struggling to see the potential to have 2. I heard clearly the one person say they were not interested in partnering to put an event on together. And in response to the question, I think I got a sense that there's hesitancy from at least one of the 2 to continue forward if it's being offered to two different persons. So I kind of got a sense from your response that trying to go with 2 is probably going to, or is potentially going to eliminate 1. I'm not opposed to trying the 2 directly, although I do not think it's necessarily in the best interest of us or either of the 2 organizers. I think if I was an organizer, I would want to think that I'm putting all my marbles into a particular event and hoping that it's going to be a strong outcome for both me and the community. I think we also need to note that this particular year there will be 2 Friday the 13th in Port Dover. There will be one in March and there will be one in November. So those 2 events, although they will not conflict time-wise, may in fact have some bearing on who from that community, meaning the motorcycle community, is going to then come here in the early part of the summer or the late part of the summer. Whether they will be looking to attend just 2 here, but remember that there's now 2 others out there as well that are huge events, and because it's March and November, weather-wise, they could be very successful. Still, because the season is still, for motorcyclists, is depending on that hated word climate change, depending on the climate situation, there may be a lot of attendance going to those 2 events as well. So I think I lean to the sense of 1, but if I sense that the majority want to go with 2, I won't oppose it. I won't fight against it. But I would rather see 1 given an opportunity to have a hugely successful event, as opposed to 2 having a somewhat successful event.
Okay, Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Your Worship. As far as option 3, my thoughts are if we go with that option, and there is a high probability, especially after reading the staff report, that both will be as successful as they thought they might be, and then that might leave us with 2 possible ones for 2021 not wanting to come back because they weren't successful in the first year. So I'd be more going for either option 1 or option 2, and I'm favoring option 2 just because it seems like that group, and again, nothing against option 1 and that group that provided information, it just seems like they may have a better chance of making a success that could have a more impact in this year and possibly next year if things go right for them.
Thank you. I think we've gone around the table, so I'm going to share my thoughts on it. I don't support option 3. I think it will, I think it's better to have just the one and give them a good chance. Option 1 is for a really good cause, but I think option 2 will provide the biggest effect on our tourism and our rooms and things like that. I think it'll be a better option for the town as far as a bigger event. So I will be supporting option 2. Is there any other comments? We do need a recommendation to come forward from council. So Councillor Watson.
I'll move option 2.
Seconded by Councillor Foster. Okay. So the motion is moved by Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Foster. The Committee of the Whole received the report on the proposed 2020 motorcycle events. Further, the committee recommend to council to consider the 3 options for the proposed motorcycle events in 2020 and provide direction to staff, which is option 2, that the committee recommend to council to proceed with Bike Fest as the 2020 motorcycle event in principle. Is there any other discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried 6-1 with Deputy Mayor Bray opposed. Next is, thank you, Angie and Chris. Next is a report from the CAO with regard to the request for expression of interest. Did you want to speak to it before I read it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the report basically speaks for itself, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that members are going to have.
Okay, thank you. It's moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Watson. The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that Slate Asset Management LP, Fram Building Group, Connox Inc., 75 Years Inc., Posick Construction, and Baycliff Communities be invited to participate in the request for proposals process for the purchase and development of Beach Area 1 lands. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor Bray?
Thank you. It's great to see this moving forward. It says it's anticipated the RFP will be issued by the end of Q1 2020, so that would be next March. What are the steps between then and now?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to the Councillor, Deputy Mayor. Just with respect to steps, is one of the steps is to be meeting with the individual proponents to discuss what they're proposing for the beachfront. In their expressions of interest, they gave general ideas, so we want to meet with them individually. And then a second step would be to meet with them collectively. While that is proceeding, we want to develop the first draft of the RFP based on what the town views as being important in the RFP document. But part of the discussions with them individually and collectively is to gather their ideas in terms of what should be in the RFP. We want to make sure that the RFP makes sense from a business standpoint, but also accomplishes the town's goals to see the beachfront redeveloped.
Thank you. And will that be the evaluation team that's involved with that? With the meetings and the...
Through you, Your Worship, yes, to the Deputy Mayor, that's correct. So the evaluation team will be involved in that.
Thank you. Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to the CAO, if I could, then, in the RFP process, is that something where there can be performance guidelines and timelines set out? So, you know, between the proponent and the town, we expect this to be done by that date and so on. Is that's that part of the process where we get specific about how things should be, how and when things should be moving along?
Through Your Worship, yes, Councillor, that's the intent, but also we want to gather input from the proponents in terms of what are realistic timeframes. So we're going to gather that information. We have ideas in terms of what we think is realistic, but from the development community, we feel it's very important to gather their thoughts because they're the ones who are actually going to be undertaking the construction.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Wells?
And again, through the CAO, at some point before the RFP is issued and responded to, is there a part of the plan that engages this council in having some discussion about what individual members of the council's vision and thoughts are towards what they're looking or hoping to see? Might not be all in agreement, but at least getting it out on the table, what individual members of council think are important considerations and or principles that should be followed.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. I think that's an excellent idea, and we could start with the planning policies that are currently in place and look at what the official plan states, what the downtown master plan states, and the zoning bylaw, and kind of outline a framework based on those documents, and then seek council input with respect to if there are other things that members of council would like to see within the document.
And if I may, Your Worship, my question actually went a little bit beyond that, in the sense that, what type of development is council thinking? Not to say that other options aren't available, but what type of development or magnitude of development or is council considering or thinking of as it goes forward? So.
And again, I think at this point there will be opportunity for council input. I think we just need to be very careful that we are not creating, that's why we need to sit down and understand from the development community what is realistic, because we can sit here and we can come up with things that we want, but it may not be realistic at the end of the day. So I think we can share what is important to us, and those who choose to incorporate that into their developments will bode well for them, I would think. But I think we just need to be careful that we don't tie them so tight to we have to have this or that. I think we need to leave some freedom to see what they come forward with. But there will be an opportunity for council to have some input.
This would be prior to the RFP being issued.
Yes. Yeah, and the RFP, I would assume that it would come to this table for approval anyways. So I think that we'll have time for input, and then there will be final approval by this council. Okay, Councillor Blanchet?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Along the same vein as there's certain common elements that have been discussed over the years of treatments for beach drive, streetscapes, wave walls, the boardwalk. All of these things have to have continuity across anybody that's participating in the development. So I'm assuming that those would be shared costs that would have to be built into the RFP, that there would have to be an understanding on anyone that's participating, is that there's some common elements that you're going to contribute to. And so I would like council to participate in that, and that we have a clear understanding before issuing an RFP. And I agree, it has to be realistic, but at the same time, we know there are costs there, and there has to be continuity. It can't be 5 developers saying, oh, well, we're going to have the boardwalk look like this, and somebody else is going to do something on the next block. It makes no sense. So.
No, I think we're all in agreement with that, yes. Anyone else? Okay, so I've already read the motion. I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Next is the Twin Pad Arena and Library final site selection next steps. So I do have a mover and seconder. It is moved by Councillor Kinney, seconded by Councillor Foster. The Committee of the Whole received the report outlining the ranked list of Twin Pad and library sites from the Director of Library Services and the Director of Recreation, Events and Facilities for information. And further, the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that it approve the following site for the new Twin Pad Arena, 544 River Road West. And further, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that it approve the following site for the new library, 544 River Road West. And further, the Council directs staff to formalize the parameters surrounding the project on the selected site as part of preparing the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program funding application for Council's consideration prior to the submission deadline of November 12, 2019, including land purchase in accordance with the existing purchase and sale agreement, if applicable, to the selected site. I think before I open it up, I do want to thank staff for all the work that they've put into this. I know it's been a long process, but I also want to thank the public. The public came to the open house. They've been on doing the survey, and I think it's a really good we've had good input from, I think, all angles, and we shortlisted the sites approved by council. We went through an evaluation matrix that was approved by council, and this is the result of it. And I think it was a really good, open, transparent, and engaging process. So thank you to those who did all the hard work. So and with that, I will open it up. Councillor Foster?
Yes, Your Worship. I wanted to, when you asked for conflicts of interest earlier, this had a potential for me to do it if it's anything other than the proposal that's in front of council, right?
That's all we're dealing with right at the moment.
Correct. So I do not at this point, as long as, if we go into discussion of other properties, then I will declare at that point. However, I'm in favor of this. There are a few things I just want to draw to attention from the report. One is the, and it was attached as the library board letter where they are in favor of this, but the library board, as you know, many of those members have been there for a decade or longer and have, well, we've toured 4 or 6 libraries, and the previous term of council, I know you guys toured a bunch of libraries as well. They've done a great deal of work on it. So I think that should this go anywhere other than this 544 River Road West, we should take very serious consideration of the library board letter, along with all the public input. And then the other piece, of course, is a little further on in the report is the letter from the Ministry of Infrastructure, who's suggesting that a joint facility, in my read of it, may be more favorable to receive the grant funding we want. So that was just my only comments. I am in favor of this as proposed and will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Your Worship, I'm prepared to support the recommendation that has come before council for the site.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, did you have your hand?
I can't remember if I put it up or not, if there was anyone else go first.
Okay. Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Your Worship. I too would like to thank staff, primarily for keeping us on track. The outline of time schedules and stuff, it was great from that point of view, and I'm sure they, like the rest of the community, will be very, very happy when this is done. I'm very, very happy with the input we got from the public. I think that just shows that, yeah, when we're talking about big infrastructure, we've got, it's good to get those feedbacks, and they're important. I too will support the library and the arena going to this site for multiple reasons, including that it probably will give us the best shot at getting what we want from the grant position.
Councillor Boulanger?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I will also support this. It's it's one of those things where you look at many different options. Certainly, I had expressed concern, and even in the report, it talked about the walkability of particularly the library, but not only from the grants, but many communities underestimate the ongoing operational costs and the effect on budget, and there is significant savings by putting the 2 locations together. I'm hoping there's opportunity as we go forward and construction gets underway, as that in subsequent years we can look at the connectivity, special transportation, whatever it is, to connect it to the best of our ability to our tourism industry and to a walkable, vibrant environment, because I believe that as we move to our downtown revitalization, that we are going to see mixed use, and we're going to see in years going forward a lot different demographic on our main street than what we see today. So, but I think this was the way the report was written and how they weighted all of the responses was well done.
Councillor Wells?
Yeah, I will support the recommendation because of the process that was used to get there, and I can't fault the process as being as open to have everyone's opportunity to contribute to the decision making, and so for that reason, I will say that it's not the outcome that I personally had hoped for. However, we don't always get what we want. But I still have, having said that, I still have some concern about what to me was a key factor, and that is the opportunity for future additions, expansions to either the recreation facility. So you build a twin pad arena. Down the road, maybe you want to have a community double gymnasium and or a community 6-lane swimming pool. I'm just making up opportunities. This site selection does not offer that opportunity. Now, I do know in the report it did say that there was opportunity for some expansion and also for other community partners. I'm not sure how to interpret that, because there is on the one report that we received, and we received this report after the change in the parking allocation. So the parking allocation for public facilities I'm referring to. So these documents were prepared and submitted to the public after that change was made. So I'm assuming that that was taken into account as part of the discussion. But it says in one of those reports that a 9.4 acre site is required for the twin pad arena. And Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were talking a minimum of something like 2.1 or 2.2 site required for the library facility. So if we put those together, we are now looking at 11 point something total acreage, and the site that's being recommended is in fact 11.1 acres. So I do struggle to understand where or how we are going to be able to do any additional expansions or community partnerships on that particular piece of property, which means moving forward, either this council, the next council, or the council after is going to have to go through this whole process all over again in terms of finding a site for some other type of community recreational facilities or facilities that would complement or be appropriate for addition to the excuse me, to the library. So those were my reservations as I read through, and they are still my reservations. I still also have the reservation that we're going to be looking at expenditure of something like $5.8 million to purchase the property and prepare the site. And I guess some of the other options provided the same opportunities for something in the neighborhood of $1.5 to $2 million, which means there's $3 million that is not going to be available for the building or its furnishings and amenities. But it sounds like I'm negative that I'm being negative to the site. I'm not necessarily being so. I said right from the beginning that I'll support the outcome of the discussion but I just want to be on record and having said that it's with some reservations, and those are my reservations.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bray.
Thank you. Following Councillor Wells, I too had a few reservations. Certainly respect the process. It's been a long way to get here. Having sat on the library board for 4 years, I truly believe that a standalone library might have been a better option for our community, but at this point we are going forward with the hub, and I will support it.
Councillor Blanchet?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just on another impact, I do believe of the locations involved from my perspective, the synergy with our tourist industry and the economic impact that it will have on local business, and although things they can't be understated, that also contributes a lot of revenue to our town, and I believe that some of the sites did not offer that synergy or the economic spin-off that we could expect from this location. So.
Okay, so I've already read the motion. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Next, we have a motion moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Foster. Resolved that pursuant to Section 239(2)(a) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the Committee of the Whole meeting of October 15, 2019 be closed to the public to discuss the security of the property of the municipality or local board. All those in favor? Carried. And we'll just take a 10-minute break to allow the break. have a motion moved by Councillor Boulanger, seconded by Councillor Wells, that Committee of the Whole confirm the direction provided to the Assistant Manager of Beachfront Properties in closed session pertaining to a lease on Beach Drive. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Scott, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, Steve.